here we are displaying our star of the show for this cook. All right, what we have here is 2 spare ribs in front of us, and in the back we have our yellow mustard, which we'll be using as a binder, and the salt, which is going to be applied onto the ribs to create moisture to absorb the complete seasoning, which is right next to the salt. That's the Badia complete seasoning. And then we're going to top off the ribs with the barbecue rub from Killer Hogs. The barbecue rub from Killer Hogs, okay? All right, next step we're going to do is to trim up these ribs into a St. Louis cut, okay? I'll go into detail of what that means here shortly, but we're removing the rib tips from the main part of the ribs, okay? I'll give a little quick 1, 2, 3 step on how to do that. But what I've done off camera during this process of dressing up the ribs, I took the ribs out of the package, rinsed them off real good, patted them down, placed them on this baking dish container, and now I'm moving on to the next part of dressing up, which is trimming, okay? All right, this is what we do to get the ribs ready for the pit. All right, y'all, stay tuned. Okay, so the next step of dressing up our ribs after you've washed and rinsed them off and patted them dry is to trim them up, okay? So the trimming technique we're using is the St. Louis cut, all right? St. Louis cut involves squaring up the tip of the ribs to make it into a rectangular shape, okay? So the spare rib, once I bought it, was intact, of course, and off camera. I lined up the base of the rib right here on the edge so I can have a line to use to guide my cut right there, which separates the rib tip from the spare rib, from the main part of the rib, which we're going to be smoking. So I squared off the end of ribs, and then I made an incision right here to cut off the rib tip. And as you can see, there's nothing but gristle. Okay, so your knife, preferably a fillet knife, can actually cut through those the gristle of the rib tip to create that competition style St. Louis cut rib. Okay, of course this is bone up, and I also removed the membrane as well. The membrane is a thin layer of skin, in which is on the bone side, and it's normally not suggested to smoke your ribs with the membrane on for other reasons, like making the ribs tough once you actually finish the cook, or it prevents your ribs from absorbing the various seasons and flavors. All right, so that's that. I'm gonna come back and take my other spare rib and show you how I did this. Okay, so this is a complete spare rib. This is a St. Louis cut spare rib, okay? I always had the impression that whenever you wanted this style, you went to your local grocer and you to the meat department, you found that St. Louis cut, you wanted that look, and that's what you smoked or barbecued. If you wanted this look, you bought this and put it on the pit. Well, some fraternity brothers of mine, one in particular, Daryl Williams, told me that I could do this myself. Instead of paying the extra money to have this done, I can actually buy a reasonable spare rib and do this myself. Make this into a St. Louis cut, and with the rib tips, put them to the side and smoke them for another day or later on that day. And of course, I'm pretty sure someone out there is saying, well, what are you doing with all those rib tips? Well, we bag these rib tips up in a Ziploc bag, and like I said, we could smoke them next weekend or smoke them the next day, you know. But here, thanks to Daryl Williams, shout out to Daryl Williams, we're gonna show you how to do the St. Louis cut from these spare ribs. All right. So what I do is, or what I've learned to do is, turn over my ribs, bone side up. Okay, bone side up. And then I line up the bone of the ribs, the square end of the bone, alongside the edge of the board, cutting board. Then the first thing that I do is I take my fillet knife and I square off the ends. Okay? Square off the ends by finding that last bone that's in the formation of bones here. And I take my fillet knife and I give it a nice cut. The fillet knife is very sharp. Okay, there you go. That's the first step. Okay? And of course, the next step is this skirt here. I want to cut that off as well. So I take my fillet knife and I lightly cut that off. Sharp fillet knife will just go through this part of the meat like butter. Alright, that's part of the rib that you can smoke along with the rib tips if you want. Like my household, we don't throw away anything. Okay, put that to the side. Alright, now it's shaping up. So, you got a lot of fatty skin on your ribs. So you need to trim all that down. We're talking about dressing up our ribs for the cook. You're not going to get all the fat, but at least you get most of it. And of course, some of the fat is good for flavor. Okay. Cutting the fat off. Right, so this part here up top is what we're cutting off, okay? So what I like to do once again, keep the straight edge side along with the edge of the board, and then I would turn this around the board. Hopefully you have a board that's convenient where you can turn it like this. So I have my bones lined up on the edge of the board. Take my fillet knife, and what you want to do is locate the top part of the straight bones on this end, and once you find that, you can cut through. Now, how am I able to cut through these bones with this fillet knife? Well, these bones are the gristle. So as you know, you can chew gristle or eat gristle. So it's not actually bone with marrow. All right, so that's the line I'm trying to get to. So I go to the top here, using this as a guide, eyeballing it. Make my incision, connect with the cut that I made down here. May not always be perfectly straight, but using these guides, you'll come very close. Without a guide, of course, it may be shaped differently. All right, so there we go. We have cut rib tips off of competition St. Louis cut. Okay? All right, so now I want to turn this back around. And some people take the membrane off before all of this, but the past 2 times I've cooked my ribs, I saved the removal of the membrane for last. Okay, you want to take a butter knife and you want to lift up that membrane off that bone. And then of course, because it's so slippery, you want to grab a napkin or a paper towel in order to pull. And of course, sometimes it can be a little difficult. Sometimes you can get it in one pull, sometimes you have to make several pulls. But the goal is to remove the membrane off the bone side of the rib. All right, there we go. Oh, it looks like it's cooperating. Okay, so membrane is being pulled off the back of the ribs. Okay, so that's the bones that have been, the membrane has been removed. Still some more membrane there. And just keep pulling, okay? So, there we go. I believe we got it all. All right, just cut off some more fat here. And I think we are ready. Nice. Voila.